Hello. I know what you're probably thinking. Star Wars Explained, hardly anything new. I know. I agree. But this particular video that I'm going to watch, I've read about. I've never actually watched the video because I don't have TikTok. I'm not a TikTok person, so I don't really know how TikTok works. And I read this thing that this TikTok person came up with a video on why all the Star Wars movies needed to have their names changed, or that every Star Wars film has the wrong title. But apparently, according to Katie, the video actually has reasoning behind it, which sounds illogical because the movies don't need to have their names changed. So what I thought I would do is I would watch it, I would react to it. You're just getting me today, there's no Katie, it's just me. I would watch it, I would react to it, and then, because I'm a generous, not over the top Star Wars fan, I would then explain why this person is completely wrong. So we'll watch it. It belongs to Fake Disney Facts by the look of it. That's the TikTok person, so I'm using their video. This video is on by this person, Zebulon Dak, whose description says, "I don't like it, I don't agree with it, but I accept it." I already don't accept it because I know what the order is that he goes in. But again, like I said, this is for the reasoning, not for the actual content. And just for the record, I'm pretty sure Star Wars Theory, who's the main sort of Star Wars YouTuber, he's already done a video on this, and if you go and watch his, he'll explain it. He explains it far better than I ever will. But I'm just going to give you like my sort of opinion and why I don't think that the Star Wars movies ever needed their title changed. Okay, so let's just watch it, I guess.
This is why every Star Wars film has the wrong title. What happens in Episode 1? We meet Anakin Skywalker, the Rise of Skywalker. Years later, we find out that Palpatine...
Alright, so I'm just, instead of stopping it at each one, I'm just going to watch the whole thing through, and then I'll go through it, stop at each one, and explain to this person why he is wrong.
Leader of the Sith, have ordered an army to destroy the Jedi. Revenge of the Sith. In Episode 3, Order 66 happens, and the clones attack. Attack of the Clones. In Episode 4, Obi-Wan teaches Luke that it's time for the Jedi to return. Return of the Jedi. In Episode 5, Yoda teaches Luke how to use the Force. The Force Awakens. In Episode 6, both Yoda and Anakin die, which makes Luke the last Jedi. After the Empire is destroyed, a new Empire comes. The Empire strikes back. Come on, guys. In Episode 8, Luke trains Rey and then sacrifices himself to give the Resistance a new hope. Finally, in Episode 9, Palpatine returns from the dead, making him the Phantom Menace. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Lucasfilm, hire me, please.
Right, okay, so first of all, Lucasfilm probably will hire this person because they don't know what they're doing. There's a few of them that I can understand why he's putting that on, but I think for the most part, this video, the person who made this video, sounds like a young person, so he doesn't fully understand why the movies are called what they're called to begin with. And this isn't, I'm not trying to be condescending, this is me genuine, because Katie's sometimes exactly the same. She doesn't fully understand why certain films are called the way they are, because obviously if you take a film at its face value, then you can say that it's probably the wrong title. So we will watch this back through, and I'll stop at each one and explain why each one is called what it's called for those people who don't know. Like I said, this isn't a new video, it's just a video that I'm going to make. Alright, so let's try it.
This is why every Star Wars film has the wrong title. What happens in Episode 1? We meet Anakin Skywalker, the Rise of Skywalker.
Alright, so the reason everyone that I've always talked to about Star Wars assumes that the Phantom Menace is Darth Maul. And like I was saying before, on face value, Darth Maul makes sense as the Phantom Menace because he's this secretive person who doesn't talk. He comes and he attacks, he kills a Jedi, and yeah, he is the to most sort of people on the surface of the title, Darth Maul is the Phantom Menace. But when you actually look into it and you watch the film, the actual Phantom Menace that the film's referring to is Darth Sidious, not Darth Maul, because at the end of the film, when Darth Maul is presumed dead, you know, Mace Windu and Yoda both say, was he the master, was he the apprentice? And so it's sort of, that's already teasing the idea of this sort of secretive, behind the scenes sort of puppet master, and that person is the Phantom Menace. It's not Darth Maul who's the Phantom Menace. But again, this is one of those ones where if you take it on face value, yeah, it makes sense, you know, just to think of Darth Maul as the Phantom Menace. But in the longer term, Darth Maul isn't the Phantom Menace. It's Darth Sidious, it's the Phantom Menace.
Years later, we find out that Palpatine, leader of the Sith, have ordered an army to destroy the Jedi. Revenge of the Sith.
Okay, so this is another one where this person is using their long-term Star Wars knowledge to apply a title that doesn't make sense in the context of that film. So yes, we all who have seen the Star Wars movies know that the Clone Army is, you know, created by Darth Sidious to essentially overthrow the Jedi years down the line after the Clone Wars. But when you think about in the moment, the Episode 2 itself, this one, because it's probably the worst Star Wars movie, just refers to the arrival of the clones. The reason it doesn't make sense as the Revenge of the Sith is because something that I'll explain on the third part of this, because I already know what I'm going to say. In this one, this is probably the only one in the whole thing that you've got to take on face value, which is that it is simply the clones arrive and the war starts. Because, you know, the Republic doesn't have a grand army, and it's the arrival of the clones, and arrival of the clones doesn't sound quite as good as Attack of the Clones. Also, the first one, sorry, I should go back to the first one, because I didn't explain why The Rise of Skywalker doesn't make any sense as the title. So the reason The Rise of Skywalker doesn't make sense as a title for this one is because Anakin doesn't rise. You know, I don't particularly agree with The Rise of Skywalker being the name of the last film either, but it definitely doesn't make sense in this one, because yes, you see that sort of Jedi instincts that he has, that he's able to do things, and as Qui-Gon says, he can see things before they happen, etc, 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 but it's not a significant enough thing to be called A Rise of Skywalker. So yeah, that's wrong. So we'll go back to number 2, sorry.
Palpatine, leader of the Sith, have ordered an army to destroy the Jedi. Revenge of the Sith.
The reason it doesn't make sense for it to be called Revenge of the Sith is because the Sith haven't gotten their revenge. You know, the clones don't arrive and start killing the Jedi. Had that been the case, then yes, Revenge of the Sith might have made sense, but the clones arrive and save the Jedi. The revenge, as I'm about to tell you in a minute, the revenge that the Sith get isn't just the destruction of the Sith as a thing. It's more sort of long-winded. But anyway.
In Episode 3, Order 66 happens and the clones attack. Attack of the Clones.
So basically, he's just said there that the second one should be called Revenge of the Sith because the clones attack, and then the third one should be called Attack of the Clones because the clones attack. Doesn't make any sense. But what I will say is the reason this one is called Revenge of the Sith and not Attack of the Clones is because the revenge that the Sith get isn't just the destruction of the Jedi. It's a long-winded plan that starts centuries before any of this takes place, and it comes from the rule of 2 that the Sith have, where they have this long-term plan to finally get rid of the Jedi who've sort of sent them into this exile. And it's not just Anakin's, turn against the Jedi. That's not the revenge. Like I say, it's this really long-winded plan that the Sith have had for centuries to finally destroy the Jedi totally, so that they can have this, galactic empire, probably is the word you would use, this galactic empire ruled by the Sith. It's actually Plagueis' plan that Sidious enacts. If you read up on it, Plagueis comes up with a plan to manipulate loads of star systems and essentially start a war with each other to turn all of the systems in the Republic against the Jedi in order for a Sith who becomes the Chancellor to, establish an empire that will be ruled by a Sith Lord. And because obviously Darth Plagueis' tragedy occurs, it's Sidious that does that. But yeah, the Revenge of the Sith is definitely the best title for this film. It doesn't make any sense for it to be Attack of the Clones. Yes, the clones do kill the Jedi, so I can understand that kind of logic behind it, but that's maybe 30 seconds. If you take it for like a 30-second minute, this movie could literally be called anything. It could be called, 360 Spin, Star Wars Episode 3, 360 Spin, or Star Wars Episode 3, The Tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. It's all of the movies are named not so much for the face value of the events that happen in them, but because of the long-term effect of everything that takes place in the film. And it's far more abstract than being sort of, just a basic movie. The only one that is Attack of the Clones, as I've already said. That's the only one that's a very basic title.
3, Order 66 happens and the clones attack. Attack of the Clones. In Episode 4, Obi-Wan teaches Luke that it's time for the Jedi to return. Return of the Jedi.
The Jedi don't return. In that film, the Jedi don't return. If you watch previous videos that I've made with my friends, nobody knows that what Luke does is the Force when he destroys the Death Star. It's got nothing to do with the Jedi. The fact that Obi-Wan comes back and starts, Luke's training, doesn't signal the return of the Jedi. That's far more complex in the third movie, which is called The Return of the Jedi. The reason it's called A New Hope is because they've had roughly 18 years under the rule of this dictatorship, this sort of evil empire. The galaxy's gotten used to a sort of almost a tyrannical stance. So the reason it's called A New Hope is because, the last chosen one, and then again this is an abstract concept, that the previous chosen one, because he assumed that he wasn't the chosen one because he didn't do what he was supposed to do, he didn't work, so there's a new hope, a new chosen one, which is Luke, because he has the Force and he's related to Anakin. Obviously Anakin is still the chosen one, that's a different video that I've got to explain. But yeah, A New Hope is the title of that movie and should always be the title of that movie.
In Episode 5, Yoda teaches Luke how to use the Force. The Force Awakens.
So you'll notice with certain videos that I'll make, I've completely given up on the sequel trilogies. All 3 of the titles don't make any sense. The only one that does is The Force Awakens. That's fair enough. But the reason that the 5th movie is called Empire Strikes Back is because the first movie ends with the rebellion ultimately winning. Obviously we see Darth Vader escape, and at that time I don't think they mention the Emperor at that point. But in the second movie we understand that the Empire isn't just the Death Star. And ultimately the strike back that it does is it ultimately neutralizes neutralizes 2 assets that the rebellion have in the form of Han Solo and Luke. Because of Darth Vader's revelation that he's Luke's father, the assumption is that Luke has been neutralized. Obviously he doesn't get neutralized. But it's also, it's the only movie in the 3 originals that's dark. And because of that sort of trilogy structure, the good trilogy structure is the second movie changes the trilogy as a whole. And the reason that Empire Strikes Back makes sense is because the Empire ultimately win. They win this. They win the 5th movie. Sorry. So if you think about it in face value, The Force Awakens doesn't make sense because the reason that the 7th movie is called The Force Awakens is because the Force hasn't been getting used for a certain amount of time, and then it does, which is The Force Awakening. Whereas in this one, the Force is still being used by the likes of Vader and Luke and Yoda and Sidious. They're all still using the Force. There's no absence of the Force. So The Force Awakens doesn't make sense for that movie.
In Episode 6, both Yoda and Anakin die, which makes Luke the last Jedi.
So I could sort of understand where he's coming from this one. And again, The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, especially, the titles don't make any sense whatsoever, even with the films that are actually on. But the reason it's called The Return of the Jedi is because this does signal the actual return of the Jedi. At this point, Luke is a Jedi Knight. He's achieved what most other Jedi can't, which is once they've been tempted by the dark side and they've used it, he's able to go back and not use it, refuse the call that it gives. But apart from that as well, it also signals the end of the Sith. And the Force itself is almost like a balancing act, where you've got the Sith, the Jedi, and then there's a big grey section in the middle. And when the Sith die, i.e. Vader and Sidious, the Jedi ultimately take control again, which isn't necessarily balanced. Again, different video, but it is the return of the Jedi. It does make sense. It makes less sense as the Force Awakens, what do you call it? The Last Jedi, because he isn't the Last Jedi really. He's still there, but again, I can understand why he would say the Last Jedi.
After the Empire is destroyed, a new Empire comes. The Empire strikes back. Come on, guys.
Never refer to it as an Empire. It's the First Order. That might be me being pedantic, but one, they don't win. If you're going to take it as a sort of, oh my god, this is another empire that has come, and they somehow strike back, but they don't really. They destroy a planet. I think in the Force Awakens, I think they destroy a planet. It's been that long since I've watched the sequels, but they destroy a planet, and that's their ultimate, striking back. As for the rest of it, because it's a New Hope rehash, there is no. So the reason that the episode 5 was called this Empire Strikes Back is because the Empire wins. This one, the Empire, the new Empire, which it isn't called and it is never referred to as the Empire, doesn't strike back. It doesn't win. It loses. Like in the first movie that it's there, it loses. So it doesn't make any sense for it to be called the Empire Strikes Back.
In episode 8, Luke trains Rey and then sacrifices himself to give the Resistance a new hope.
Again, this is another one I can understand why he calls it, why that would seem like a good idea to call it that. But these two movies, especially The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, I'm going to play the end of the video and then I'll give my final thoughts on it.
Finally, in episode 9, Palpatine returns from the dead, making him the Phantom Menace.
Right, so, two things. The only movies whose names should be changed are the last two. Makes more sense for the episode 8 to be called The Rise of Skywalker because Luke comes back, sacrifices himself to save everyone. That sort of depressing version of his character is gone, and he does give the Resistance the hope it needs, and that could be your sort of rise, if you want to call it that. And in the last movie, Rey ultimately ends up being the Last Jedi, so that would sort of make sense. As for the last movie being called The Phantom Menace, the reason the first movie is called The Phantom Menace is because there's that element of they don't know who it is. They don't know who the mysterious puppet master is in the background, or if it's just an apprentice. They don't know. In The Rise of Skywalker, they all know that it's Palpatine. There's no element of phantom in it. And there's, yes, I suppose you could call him a menace, but I mean, he is a menace because he just turns up at the end for no reason. So it doesn't make any sense in an abstract sense to call it the Phantom Menace. As for the 8th movie, I can kind of understand why it's called A New Hope, but when we're talking about the sequels, it's just better to forget about them. So yeah, my opinion is that these movies should not have their names changed at any point, especially not the prequels or the sequels. The prequels or the originals. Sorry, the prequels or the originals should never have the names changed. All of the names make sense, not because of the, basic element of them, not because, the Phantom Menace is Darth Maul, who is the scary guy who no one knows who he is and all that stuff and he never talks, but because of the abstract, full, sorry, my phone's going off. Someone's trying to get my attention. It's because of a more long-winded reason. It's far more sort of, intellect. I wouldn't say even intellectual. It's not face value titles. It's not just about a 30-second moment in the movie. It's about the whole movie, which is how a movie should be entitled. You don't name it after 30 seconds in a movie. Although Attack of the Clones is. So yeah, none of these movies should be changed. Yeah, that was my Star Wars Explained video, my first one. I am going to do more because I've already stumbled onto a few things that I need to explain. And what I don't want to do is I don't want these videos to be like Star Wars Theories videos where I essentially tell everyone how clever I am, because he is ridiculously clever with Star Wars lore. It's more about what I take from these movies, because I don't know if you can see that. Yes, you can. I am a ridiculously over-the-top Star Wars fan, and you know, I like explaining things like this to people. Whenever I sit and talk to people about Star Wars, you know, I feel better for explaining it. So I'm going to make a series with it. I'm sorry. So yeah, thank you for watching. Let me know down in the comments what you think of the titles. Do you think they need to be changed? Let me know what other kind of things you'd like me to talk about. I've got 3 or 4 ideas of what I'm going to do. But yeah, let me know. Thank you.
I need to know.